I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who locks his front door and still ends up with his brother standing in his living room like it's his name on the deed. But I guess that's what happens when you're the only one in the family who learned how to say no and actually mean it. My name's Ryan, I'm 34, and for most of my adult life, I've been the responsible one in the family. Not by choice, mind you. I didn't audition for the role. It just kind of happened. I have one older brother, Nate, who's 37 going on 16, and somehow he's still the golden boy in our parents' eyes. Even when he forgets birthdays, ditches holidays, or shows up late to family events half drunk and loud, he's met with sighs and laughter. That's just Nate. Meanwhile, I'm the guy who works a full-time job, pays my mortgage early, and apparently signs up to host every single family gathering. To be clear, I don't hate my family. I actually love them. But over the last few years, something shifted. I started noticing how much of the heavy lifting always landed on me. If someone needed help moving, Ryan will do it. If the oven breaks the morning of Thanksgiving, Ryan can host. Christmas dinner? Oh, Ryan's house is big enough. My mom calls it leaning on the reliable one, but it stopped feeling like support and started feeling like exploitation. Quiet, polite exploitation wrapped in expectations and passive-aggressive guilt. The breaking point started brewing months before it actually happened. Our parents' 40th wedding anniversary was coming up in October, and I knew, without anyone saying it, that everyone just assumed I'd host. I could already picture the group chat lighting up. Ryan, do you think your place could work again? No offer of help, no asking what I wanted, just assumptions. So, one Sunday in late July, I brought it up on a call with Nate. It was supposed to be casual. I wasn't trying to start anything. I just wanted to give him a heads up. Hey, listen, I said, trying to keep my tone light. I know the anniversary's coming up, but I'm going to sit this one out. I can't host this year. Work's been insane, and honestly, I need a break. There was a pause. One of those weird, charged silences that make your stomach tighten before anything's even said. You can't host. Nate finally replied, and I could already hear the edge creeping into his voice. What do you mean you can't? I mean I'm not able to this time, I said. Between work and some stuff I've been dealing with at home, look, I need some space. I'm happy to chip in money or help someone else set it up, but it can't be at my place. Another silence. Then he scoffed. So you're just what? Bailing on mom and dad's anniversary? After everything they've done for you? I blinked. Bailing? Nate, come on. That's not fair. I've hosted 6 holidays in a row. 2 birthdays. I even rearranged furniture last Thanksgiving because you forgot to bring extra chairs. Oh, give me a break, he cut in. You have the nicest house. A huge kitchen. Parking. You're literally the only one who can do it right. And that's not my fault, I said, trying not to let the anger creep into my voice. That doesn't mean I owe it to everyone every time. He laughed again, but it wasn't friendly. Wow. Unreal. You know what? This is exactly why no one in the family respects you. I froze. Excuse me. You're just selfish, man, Nate said, his voice sharp. You hide behind your little job and your mental health excuses, but when it really matters, you flake. You're not reliable. You're just a coward who plays it safe and lets everyone else pick up the pieces. That one stung. Not because it was true. It wasn't. But because it was so far from who I am, and he knew that. He weaponized the very thing I'd always done for the family. Every time I picked up the slack, every time I stayed late cleaning after everyone else left, every time I smiled through exhaustion so mom wouldn't worry, he turned all of that into a weakness. A flaw. I ended the call without saying another word. I thought that would be the end of it. Maybe some drama in the family group chat, a few guilt-trippy messages from my mom or aunt, but nothing I couldn't handle. I didn't expect what Nate did next. 2 days later, I opened my phone and saw 15 missed calls from my cousin Emma. 5 voicemails. A text that just said, "Call me now." Nate's lost it. When I called her back, she didn't even say hello. She just launched in. He told everyone you abandoned the family. He said you refused to host because you don't care about your parents anymore. He's blowing up the group chat, Ryan. It's bad. Your mom's crying, your dad's pissed, and Aunt Cheryl's talking about how you've changed. My stomach turned. He what? He told them you bailed without a reason. That you ghosted him. That you didn't even offer to help. I sat down on the edge of my couch, completely stunned. I literally offered to help. I said I'd contribute money. I just didn't want to host. Emma hesitated, then lowered her voice. He's also saying he's going to host it at your place anyway. I thought she was joking. I'm serious, she said. He told everyone you're just being dramatic and that he's going to take care of it. At your house. He said you'll thank him later. That's when I realized how far gone he was. Nate wasn't just angry. He was rewriting the narrative. And no one was stopping him. Worse, people were starting to believe him. When I checked the group chat, I saw it for myself. Dozens of messages, some passive-aggressive, some outright cold. No one had asked for my side. They just went along with his version. Ryan, Emma said gently, please tell me you have security cameras. I did. In fact, I had a full security system installed last year after a minor break-in scare. Front door sensors, motion detectors, the whole deal. But I had never in my life imagined I'd need it for my own brother. I spent the next few days tense. Watching. Waiting. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. I knew something was coming. I just didn't know when. The weird part. The group chat went dead. Silent. No messages. No updates. Just radio silence for 3 whole days. Then on a quiet Friday afternoon, while I was out running errands, I got the notification. Front door opened. 2:47 p.m. And 5 seconds later. Motion detected. Living room. My heart dropped. I stared at the alerts, praying I'd somehow but dialed the system or triggered it myself. But the next notification killed that hope. Glass break sensor triggered. Kitchen window. I drove home faster than I should have, adrenaline flooding my veins, panic wrestling with rage. I called the police from the car, told them I had a break-in in progress and that my cameras showed someone inside. The dispatcher told me officers were en route. When I pulled into my street, I saw 2 squad cars already there, lights flashing. And on my front lawn, flanked by 2 confused-looking cops, stood Nate, wearing a dress shirt and khakis, looking absolutely stunned as he tried to explain why he had a car trunk full of party decorations, tablecloths, and a personalized Happy 40th Anniversary banner. He saw me pull up. His face went pale. I didn't say a word. I just parked and stepped out slowly, letting the scene sink in. One officer walked over to me. You the homeowner? I nodded. You know this guy? Unfortunately, I said. And that's where everything started to unravel. Nate was trying to spin it like it was all a misunderstanding. That he was just trying to surprise our parents. That I'd changed my mind but didn't tell anyone. That I'd left a key under the mat. Lies. Every single one. I wish I could say that was the moment everything changed. That seeing Nate surrounded by flashing lights and police officers, caught red-handed trying to throw a party in a house that didn't belong to him, opened everyone's eyes. That maybe, finally, someone in the family would say, hey, Ryan's been right this whole time. But that's not what happened. The thing about families like mine, tight-knit on the outside, but quietly toxic underneath, is that the truth doesn't always matter. Perception does. Appearances do. Keeping the peace is more important than keeping your dignity. And when someone disrupts that illusion, even if they're in the right, they become the problem. After the police left, after Nate was forced to pack his car with all the decorations he hadn't even bothered to tell me about, I went inside, sat on my couch, and just stared. The house smelled faintly of cheap cologne and sweat, the kind you get from rushing around under pressure. My living room rug had muddy shoe prints. One of my dining chairs was tipped over. A few helium balloons were still clinging to the ceiling. He'd really thought he could pull it off. I checked my security footage later that night. Watched the whole thing play out like a bad sitcom. Nate unlocking the back gate with the spare key he clearly hadn't forgotten from years ago. Sliding open the window he must have loosened earlier that week. Climbing in like some middle-aged reverse burglar. Carrying boxes labeled Anniversary, MOM and Dad, and shouting out instructions to a couple of our younger cousins who he dragged along to help, clearly thinking I was just going to show up and roll with it. The best part? At one point, one of the cousins asked, "Are you sure Ryan said yes to this?" And Nate, without missing a beat, said, "He's just being dramatic. He always caves eventually." That sentence hit me harder than the break-in itself. He knew I'd said no. He just didn't care. Worse, he was counting on me being too polite to make a scene. That weekend was a blur. I didn't answer texts. I didn't check the group chat. I let the calls go to voicemail. I didn't trust myself not to explode if I heard another excuse, another watered-down apology, or God forbid, another demand to not make this a bigger deal than it is. But on Monday morning, I got a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole, and there he was. Nate. holding a box of pastries like we were about to catch up over coffee. I didn't open the door, just talked through the wood. You've got 5 seconds to explain why you're here. He gave a short laugh. Come on, man. Don't be like this. I brought croissants. Nate, you broke into my house. And I've apologized for that. No, you haven't. He paused. Okay, well, I'm here to apologize. I finally opened the door, just a crack, and leaned on it. Make it good. He hesitated. Look, I messed up. I shouldn't have gone behind your back. I was under a lot of pressure, okay? Mom and Dad wanted something nice, and no one else was stepping up. You're usually the one who handles this stuff. That's because no one else has to when I do. I snapped. You're not sorry for breaking in, Nate. You're sorry you got caught. He frowned. You think this is easy for me? I've got 2 kids, a job, bills. I don't have the luxury to obsess over party logistics like you do. There it was again. The dig. The assumption that because I'm single and child-free, I must be living some kind of spa resort life. Never mind the 60-hour work weeks. The pressure. The constant family demands that always ended up on my plate. So do I said flatly. The difference is, I don't expect everyone else to carry my weight. He looked away. I'm trying to make things right, Ryan. Don't be petty about this. Petty? I echoed. You kicked off a whole family smear campaign, told everyone I abandoned Mom and Dad, then broke into my house to throw a party I specifically said I wouldn't host. And now that the cops got involved and people are starting to ask questions, you show up with pastries and call me petty. He didn't answer, just held the box out again like it would erase everything. I'm not letting this go, Nate, I said. You're not walking this back like you always do. This isn't just about the party. This is years of you taking and blaming me when I finally draw a line. Then I closed the door. Behind it, I could hear him mutter, unbelievable, and stomp back to his car. The next few days? Chaos. Apparently, Nate spun a whole new story to the family. This time, I'd overreacted and called the cops on my own brother over a misunderstanding. He left out the part where he lied to the entire family and entered my house without permission. Left out the part where I told him multiple times I didn't consent to hosting. My mom called me crying that night. Ryan, please. I don't understand. Why did you get the police involved? I didn't get them involved, Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. They were automatically alerted. That's how security systems work. You'd know that if Nate hadn't lied to you all week. He said you changed your mind last minute. That you forgot to tell him. No, I didn't. Silence. Mom, I continued. Do you know how many holidays I've hosted? How many times I've let him off the hook when he bailed last second? Do you remember Christmas 2 years ago when he didn't even show up and I had to explain to your guests why we didn't have enough food? Her voice cracked. He said you've been distant. That you've changed. I have changed, I said. Because I'm done being the family doormat. She didn't have a response. Just sniffled and said, I wish you two would work it out before the anniversary. There it was again. That subtle suggestion that the solution wasn't in Nate taking responsibility. It was in me forgiving. Me smoothing things over. Me keeping the family peace. The anniversary was now less than 2 weeks away. I'd already taken the day off work, not to plan anything, but because I knew someone would try something last minute to drag me back into it. And I was right. 4 days before the anniversary, I got a text from Aunt Cheryl. It read, heard you're hosting again. Can't wait. I'll bring the lemon bars. I stared at the message, baffled. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Uncle Mark. Hey, bud. Need help with chairs this time? Don't want a repeat of last year. I checked the group chat. Nate had posted something new. Everything's back on at Ryan's place. Anniversary party is happening. Can't wait to celebrate Mom and Dad with everyone. No one questioned it. No one even tagged me to confirm. They just assumed. Assumed I'd caved. Assumed I'd show up smiling, clean the floors, hang the decorations, prepare the food, and clap along like nothing had happened. That was the moment it all crystallized. The breaking point wasn't the break-in. It wasn't the police. It wasn't even Nate's smug refusal to apologize. It was the realization that none of them saw me as a person. I was a utility, a venue, a backdrop for their celebration. And when I tried to set a boundary, not even a hard one, just a simple no, they overrode me, lied, manipulated, rewrote the script, and shoved me back into the role they needed me to play. And Nate? He was the director. That's when I made my decision. If they wanted to treat my house like a party venue, then I'd show them exactly what happens when you ignore the owner. I sat there, staring at that message, watching the hearts and smiley reacts pile on. Reading comment after comment from relatives confirming they'd bring appetizers, cake, folding chairs. No one mentioned me. No one tagged me. They just took Nate's word for it like it was gospel, like my consent, my space, my peace didn't matter. I didn't reply. I didn't say a word. I just set my phone down, walked into my kitchen, opened the fridge, and stood there for what must have been 5 minutes. Not even looking for food. Just existing. Numb. That night, I lay awake for hours, running through every possible response. Should I call Mom? Tell her the truth? Should I confront Nate in the group chat? Should I warn everyone that if they showed up at my house, they'd be met with locked doors and police officers again? But I didn't do any of that. Because I realized something. I was done explaining myself. I was done justifying why I didn't want to be used. I was done trying to earn my family's respect by playing along with their delusions. And the truth is, I was tired. Not physically tired, though that too, but soul tired. The kind of tired that builds up slowly, year after year. Every time you swallow your frustration to keep the peace. Every time you bite your tongue while someone else takes credit. Every time you're made to feel guilty for saying no. This wasn't just about the anniversary party. This was about my entire life. About being the good son, the reliable brother, the backup plan. I'd spent so long trying to be what everyone needed. I didn't even know who I was outside of that. So I decided to let it all fall apart. I didn't show up in the group chat again. I didn't call anyone to set the record straight. I didn't even tell Nate he was lying through his teeth. Instead, I spent the next few days quietly taking care of myself. I took time off work. Real time. Not a day or two here and there while still checking emails from my phone. I mean full on, no notifications, no calls, no Slack messages kind of time off. I didn't realize how badly I needed it until the third day, when I woke up at 10 a.m. and felt something strange, calm. I started going for long walks again. There's a little trail not far from my house that winds through a wooded area, and I used to love walking it years ago. But somewhere along the line, life got busy. Obligations piled up. Those quiet moments got sacrificed for errands and favors and family expectations. I went back. No headphones. No podcasts. Just the sound of my feet crunching the leaves, birds in the distance, wind in the trees. And slowly, I started to feel something return. A sense of self. A voice I hadn't heard in a long time, mine. One afternoon, while sipping coffee on my back porch, I opened my laptop and pulled up an old folder, Ryan's projects. It was full of half-finished ideas. A home renovation blog I'd once thought about starting. A freelance spreadsheet for consulting work I never got around to. Notes for a side business I'd shelved because Nate said it wasn't practical. All the things I'd told myself I'd do once things calmed down. I picked one. A few years ago, I'd drawn up a detailed plan for an Airbnb-style guest suite in my finished basement. I'd even gotten quotes from contractors, but never moved forward because, surprise, my family kept treating the basement like their personal crash pad during holidays. There was no way I could rent it out when cousins were randomly spending the night or Uncle Jim was storing his extra tools there. But now, I started making calls. By the end of the week, I'd lined up a contractor. I cleared out the space, donated boxes of old junk, ordered new fixtures. The project gave me purpose, something that was mine again, and it felt incredible. In between meetings and paint samples, I also set an appointment with a therapist. It was something I'd put off for years. I'd always thought, what would I even say? But after everything that had happened with Nate, and the absolute silence from the rest of my family, I needed someone objective. Someone who didn't see me as a role, but as a person. Our first session cracked something open in me. I told her everything. About the years of being the fallback. The way my boundaries were constantly ignored. The guilt that followed every no. The weird, gnawing ache of being praised for being dependable, but never loved for just being me. She looked at me and said, Ryan, you've been the family's emotional support system. But who's been yours? That question broke me. I left her office, sat in my car, and just cried. Not out of sadness, really. More like release. Years of pent-up frustration finally being acknowledged. Validated. Seen. And slowly, over the next few weeks, I started to build something new. Quietly. Privately. I didn't announce anything. I didn't post motivational quotes or cutting out toxic people memes on Facebook. I just lived differently. I went to the gym, not to get ripped or punish myself, but just to feel strong again. I cooked for myself, not for 20 guests or a family feast. Just me. Meals I liked. I redecorated my living room, moved things around, bought art I actually enjoyed instead of neutral stuff that made my house feel like a hotel lobby for guests I didn't even want. And I learned to enjoy my own company again, all while keeping one eye on the date, October 14th, the day of the anniversary party. As it crept closer, I got more and more curious about what was being planned. Nate hadn't messaged me again. Neither had my parents. The group chat was still popping, though. I scrolled through it like someone watching a distant train wreck. My cousins were coordinating carpool rides to my place. Aunt Cheryl had assigned potluck dishes. There was even talk about cleaning up quickly this time, so Ryan doesn't complain. They still thought the party was happening here, and I still hadn't said a word. Why? Because I wanted them to feel what I'd felt for years, invisible, ignored, overlooked. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to let them walk straight into the consequences they created. But that plan came with a price. Because in the days leading up to the party, the weight of it all hit me hard. I got a message from my mom. Just one. I hope you're not still upset. I know you've had a rough time lately. Nate says everything is back on track. Looking forward to seeing you this weekend. She believed Nate. Still, even after everything. And she thought I was the one being difficult. That was rock bottom. Not the break-in. Not the betrayal. But the realization that even my own mother, sweet, warm, loving mom, saw me as a problem to be managed, not a person to be heard. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It's solid. It's a foundation. And I finally knew what I wanted to build on it. Because this time, I wasn't going to play the peacemaker. I wasn't going to give in, sweep things under the rug, or take the high road. After weeks of silence, I had everything I needed. Clarity, strength, a plan. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't scrambling to fix what Nate broke or chasing the approval of relatives who only noticed me when they needed something. I was thinking strategically, and it felt good. The anniversary party was scheduled for Saturday, October 14th. According to the group chat, people were planning to arrive around 2 p.m. with food, decorations, and a playlist curated by my cousin Drew, who, last I heard, still thought dubstep was acceptable party music. Nate had positioned himself as the organizer, bragging about how he pulled it all together after I panicked and ghosted everyone. The entire narrative had been rewritten like I was a flake, and he was the savior. And they all bought it. They didn't know that while they were planning their little fantasy celebration, I was setting the stage for something entirely different. It started with a few key phone calls. First, I called my security company. Hi. Yes, I said, trying to sound casual. I'd like to update the alert settings on my system. There's going to be a situation at my property this weekend, and I want to make sure I have everything recorded. The rep paused. A situation? Let's just say some uninvited guests. I won't be home, but I expect people might try to enter anyway. Can we make sure the cameras are all backed up and alerts are routed directly to my phone? He confirmed everything. Every camera, every sensor, every angle. Next, I made arrangements for myself. I booked a quiet Airbnb 2 towns over. Nothing fancy, just a peaceful one-bedroom cabin with a porch and a view of the woods. No Wi-Fi, no noise, no family. I packed a weekend bag, grabbed a few books, and told my assistant at work that I'd be unavailable Saturday through Monday. Full digital detox. I even left my personal phone at home and took a backup burner, just in case. Then came the final piece. I wrote a letter. Not an email, not a text. An actual printed letter. It was addressed to my parents. I sealed it in an envelope and dropped it in their mailbox 2 days before the party. I figured by the time they read it, everything else would already be in motion. It wasn't a letter full of rage or accusations. It was calm, clear, a message from someone who'd finally stopped begging to be understood. Here's a part of what I wrote. I love you both, but I need to say something you've never let me say without turning it into guilt or silence. For years, I've been the one keeping things afloat. Not because I'm better, but because I thought that's what love meant, doing what no one else wanted to do. Hosting, planning, covering, fixing. But love isn't obedience. It's not silence. It's not making yourself small so other people can feel big. Nate has taken advantage of me, and you've let him. I'm done pretending everything is fine. I won't be hosting the anniversary party. I won't be part of a celebration where my boundaries are ignored. I hope you understand. If not now, then someday. I didn't know how they'd take it. I didn't care anymore. Because this time, I wasn't writing it for them. I was writing it for me. The night before the party, I double-checked everything. Security system active. Cameras angled. Alerts set to push directly to my backup phone. I took one last walk through my house, locked the doors, and drove off. By noon the next day, I was sitting on the porch of my Airbnb, sipping coffee, watching the wind move through the trees. It was silent, peaceful. I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel angry. I just felt free. And then, at exactly 2:07 p.m., the notifications started rolling in. Front yard motion detected. Driveway sensor triggered. Front door, attempted entry. Back gate opened. I smiled. At 2:14, I got the first camera feed. Nate, holding a box of decorations, wearing a polo shirt and khakis like he was auditioning for Suburban Dad of the Year. Behind him, a cluster of relatives holding crockpots, folding chairs, and confusion. I watched him jiggle the front door handle. Locked. He walked around back, tried the gate, which creaked open. His shoulders relaxed. You could see it in his body language. He thought he'd gotten away with it again. Except this time, there was no hidden key, no unlocked window. And when he tried to lift the back sliding door, he was met with the loud beep 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 of the alarm activating. He panicked. He motioned to my cousin to stay back, then fumbled for his phone. You could see him dialing, pacing, probably calling me. But I wasn't answering. At 2:18 p.m., the system tripped. Unauthorized entry detected, back door. Police alerted. I watched it unfold on my screen like a live episode of Cops, Family Edition. Nate was now arguing with Drew and my cousin Michelle, flailing his arms like a maniac. The guests were standing awkwardly on the lawn, holding pies and pasta salads, slowly realizing they were not welcome. At 2:24, the first squad car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out. Nate's face drained of color. I watched him try to explain, again, why he was there, why he had keys, why he thought this was okay. But this time, the cops weren't buying it. One of them pointed at the security camera, then at the Ring doorbell, then at the small sign on my fence that read, "Smile? You're being recorded. Unauthorized entry will result in legal action." The officer pulled out a notepad. Nate rubbed his face and looked around helplessly. That's when he saw all the family members watching. Some were filming. Others were whispering. A few were already heading back to their cars. The illusion was crumbling, and I wasn't even there to see it. After the police de-escalated the situation and asked everyone to leave the property, the group chat exploded. I scrolled through it from the comfort of my cabin, watching in real time as the entire narrative Nate had spun collapsed under the weight of reality. Uncle Mark. Wait. Ryan never agreed to this. Michelle. Nate told us he changed his mind. Said it was all good. Drew. I literally bought $80 worth of ribs for this. Aunt Cheryl. I brought lemon bars for nothing. Then, at 3:05 p.m., the message that made me laugh out loud. Nate. Ryan is blowing this way out of proportion. He's making us look crazy. I took a screenshot. Sent it to Emma, the only cousin who ever actually believed me. She replied, "You're a legend. I'll bring popcorn next time." But it wasn't over yet. When I finally returned home the day after the failed anniversary ambush, the house felt different. Not because anything had changed physically, everything was exactly as I left it, but because something fundamental inside me had shifted. The place didn't feel like a prison anymore. For the first time in years, it was mine again. Mine in the way a sanctuary is supposed to be. Mine in the way a life should be. No more random relatives treating it like an Airbnb. No more furniture rearranged without permission. No more casserole dishes I didn't ask for stacked in my sink. The silence inside those walls didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. But I wasn't done yet. Because even though the party had imploded, and Nate had been thoroughly humiliated in front of half the extended family, no one had really been held accountable. Not yet. Not for the lies. Not for the manipulation. Not for the years of gaslighting and guilt-tripping that led to this moment. So I made one last move. A quiet one. A calculated one. The kind of move Nate would never see coming. First, I emailed the police department and formally submitted the footage from my security system. All of it. From the moment Nate opened the back gate, to the instant the officers showed up and dispersed the crowd. I filed a report and attached a note that read, "This is the second time he has unlawfully entered my home." I didn't press charges immediately. That wasn't the point. The point was making sure it was documented. A permanent record. Something Nate couldn't spin away in a group chat. Then I reached out to a lawyer, a friend of a friend. I asked for advice on drafting a no-contact letter that was strong but non-confrontational. Not a restraining order. Not yet. Just something that said, legally and in no uncertain terms, that Nate was no longer welcome on my property. That if he ever set foot in my home again, I would escalate it to the full extent of the law. My lawyer even suggested getting it notarized. I did. I made 3 copies. One for Nate, one for me, and one for my parents. The next day, I delivered them in person. I didn't go alone. I brought Emma with me. She had offered, and honestly, I was grateful to have someone in my corner for once. Someone who didn't look at me like I was the villain for enforcing basic boundaries. My parents looked confused when I showed up at their door. Mom opened it with a mixture of relief and hesitation. "Ryan," she said softly, "you're here." "I'm not staying long," I replied. "I just came to deliver something." I handed her the envelope. She opened it slowly, reading the letter inside. Her hands trembled slightly as she got to the part about Nate being barred from my property. Dad came to the door a moment later, peering over her shoulder. His expression tightened as he read. "You're serious about this?" he asked. "Dead serious," I said. I gave him years of chances. He broke into my home. He lied to everyone. He endangered me. This is me protecting myself. There was a long silence. Finally, Mom looked up. "We didn't know how bad it had gotten." I nodded. "You didn't want to know. Every time I tried to talk about it, you asked me to let it go. To be the bigger person. To forgive and forget." She lowered her eyes. Dad folded the letter and handed it back. "He's still your brother, Ryan." "No," I said calmly. "He was my brother. But that relationship only works when it's mutual. When it's built on respect. He burned that bridge. I'm just making sure he doesn't try to cross it again." There was nothing else to say. I turned to go. "Wait," Mom said, her voice cracking. "Is there anything we can do to fix this?" I paused, then turned back. "Not fix it. But if you want to start repairing it, you can start by believing me. Not just hearing me. Believing me." And with that, I left. The fallout came fast. Nate, predictably, blew a gasket when he got the letter. He sent a barrage of angry texts that I didn't bother reading. Just screenshotted and forwarded to my lawyer, who advised me to hold firm and not engage. The more he raged, the worse he made himself look. Then came the family drama. One by one, relatives started messaging me. Some were sheepish. Others tried to play neutral. A few, like Uncle Mark, apologized outright. "Didn't know how deep it ran, man," he wrote. "Nate's always been a handful, but I didn't realize how bad it was." Even Aunt Cheryl, queen of lemon bars and passive aggression, messaged to say she probably should have asked before assuming things. I didn't reply to everyone. I didn't have to. The silence was its own answer. But the real turning point came when Emma sent me a voicemail from Nate himself. Apparently, in a moment of desperation, he tried to smooth things over with her, not knowing she and I had grown close through all this. The message was classic Nate. Defensive, condescending, then pleading. "I just don't get why Ryan's doing this. I mean, yeah, okay, maybe I pushed too hard, but he's acting like I committed a felony. I was just trying to give Mom and Dad a nice day. Why does he always have to be so difficult? I swear, he's making me look like the bad guy when he's the one who called the cops on his own family." I played it twice, and I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was exactly what I needed to hear. Nate hadn't changed. He probably never would. But I had. I had changed in a way that mattered. In a way that stuck. Because the old me, the one who bent over backwards to keep the peace, would have sent a reply. Would have explained. Would have justified every boundary like it was an inconvenience I had to apologize for. But the new me? I didn't respond at all. Instead, I went back to building the life I'd started to reclaim. The guest suite in my basement? Finished. And booked solid for the next 3 months. The therapy sessions? Still going. And helping more than I thought they would. I even picked up that home renovation blog again, just for fun. Nothing monetized yet. Just something that felt good. Mine. And slowly, I began to surround myself with people who saw me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. Emma. A few coworkers who'd become real friends. My neighbors. Even some family members who reached out not to ask for favors, but to say, "I hear you. I believe you. I'm sorry." As for my parents, they stayed quiet for a while. I think the letter shook them. Maybe it made them look back at all the times they asked me to keep the peace and wonder what it cost me. We didn't talk for a few weeks. And that was okay. Eventually, they invited me to lunch. Just the three of us. No agenda. No expectations. It was awkward at first, small talk, long pauses, but by the end, Mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We're proud of you," she said. "Not just for standing up to your brother, but for standing up for yourself." Dad nodded. "It took guts, kid. More than I had at your age." That meant something. Not everything, but enough. The revenge wasn't flashy. It wasn't explosive. It was simple. I removed myself from a system that fed off my silence. I cut the strings that made me dance. I turned the spotlight around and let everyone see what was really happening behind the scenes. And the best part? I didn't lose anything worth keeping. Nate lost his power the moment I stopped giving it to him. The family stopped trusting him the moment they saw how far he'd go to protect his own image. And I gained something I hadn't had in years. Peace. Real peace. Not the kind that comes from avoiding conflict. The kind that comes from knowing you stood your ground and finally put yourself first. Because sometimes, the strongest move isn't revenge that burns bridges. It's building a better life on the other side of them. And when Nate showed up unannounced at my front door weeks later, desperate to talk, sweaty and frantic like nothing had happened, I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I didn't even open the door. I just smiled, turned around, and let the cameras do their job. Some bridges don't need burning. They collapse under the weight of their own lies. And all you have to do is walk away.